I think every single person on this planet needs to be educated and re-educated about climate change. We are dedicated as the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change to embrace this education issue.
We can look into the eyes of our children, our grandchildren, and we can finally say, tell them that we have joined hands to bequeath a more habitable world.
L'accord de Paris pour le climat est accepté.
State Congress voted to ban abortion. Alternate universe located.
Global temperatures rise.
The effects on social media on Generation Z.
To avoid catastrophe, rising sea levels, and dying coral reefs, the epicenter of a global pandemic.
No exception for rape or incest.
A warm welcome to the second day of broadcasting here from Belém, from the diplomatic zone at COP30. So we're broadcasting daily here and with our partners, UNDP, the Exponential Roadmap Initiative, and the Planetary Science Pavilion. And together with these partners and other session partners, we go live every day for quite a long broadcast here during the COP. So we have a very exciting day ahead of us here on the second day, don't we, Nick?
We certainly do. We have exciting days every day. Make Science Great Again is a bold campaign, right, that's trying to deal with the issue of defending the truth in terms of science. And in a few minutes, we will have Ingmar Rentzhog on the stage who's going to talk about that. And we want your support in amplifying science, supporting science, and realizing there's a fun way to get on the track of doing this. So we'll come to that in a few moments. But yeah, we got a lot on this week, and back over to you.
So we're going to hear about some really exciting solutions here, cutting carbon emissions at speed and scale, and we're going to have interesting talks with 3 Brazilian mothers too, right, Nick?
Oh, right, that's with Our Kids Climate, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, fantastic. That's really good
on the show. Yeah. So and also on we don't have time stage. We're going to find also some fantastic on-stage interviews, off-stage interviews that we're going to broadcast during these sessions. Mm-hmm. But indeed, as you pointed out, Nick, science is under threat.
Yeah, totally under threat. And this campaign, Make Science Great Again, is deliberately cheeky on one level, right? Because we're pointing a finger at least one country that's really playing fast and loose with the truth of science or the reality of science. But it actually includes populist parties all over. In Europe, you've got the AfD in Germany. You've got others in other places. So this is a serious campaign with a cheeky message, but it's a serious message at the same time. And so what we're going to do now, Katerina, if it's okay with you, is we're going to see, we've got this thing called the Bucket Challenge for Science.
We do indeed.
And this is about encouraging everybody to join. And let's watch the latest film here at COP30. Yeah, let's watch it, guys.
Hello. How's it going? How are you guys? Welcome. Have a great day.
Hola everybody from COP30 Amazonia.
Science is the overall view that we need to share in order to take the best decisions home.
I think science is important because it's one form of truth.
Today, as we stand in the world's largest rainforest, Amazonia in Belém, it is predicted by 2100 all the rainforests will be gone. Science is the key to solve this dispute.
I want to pass this off to Zoran Mamdani, the mayor-elect of New York City.
I pass the cup to the finest negotiators at the COP30.
I think we all, not just me, need to pass the cap to Mother Nature.
So I'm here with the founder of and CEO of We Don't Have Time, and also the initiator of this great campaign, Make Science Great Again. And lately, well, the past few days, you've got quite a lot of traction on your reporting of what Bill Gates has been doing in terms of denying science. So you can talk a bit about that. Would you like to address that topic right away?
Yes, I'd love to, Katarina. And it's not just Bill Gates that is... He's not denying science, but he's using what he likes of the science and ignore the ones the uncomfortable truth he doesn't like.
But selective.
And the background to this story is that the tech billionaires, they have a voice. People listen to them. They own newspapers. They own tech platforms, etc., etc. And before this COP meeting, I think it was 2 weeks before, at the same day, Antonio Guterres, the UN General Secretary, gave a very stark warning about the urgency of the climate crisis. Bill Gates published a letter about that while climate is important, we shouldn't only focus on climate. We have many problems in the world, and we need to be more sober about everything. And the climate crisis will not affect humans in near time, so why really prioritize that over everything else? I mean, of course, Bill Gates is right when he says that we can't ignore all the problems just because we have a climate crisis. We need to help poor people. We need to fight diseases. We need to do many things. But we can't choose between doing that instead of fighting the climate crisis. And publishing a letter like this before COP is not only to express your opinion, it's actually to influence this whole meeting and the global climate politics. And that made me very upset, actually, because we need leaders that are saying the truth, that we are in an urgency and we don't have 10 more COPs to solve this. We need to deliver more, not less. And Bill Gates have been one of the voices that said that more clear before. So this is a change of strategy. And this is the alarming stuff, because we all know here there's one country missing at this meeting. It's the United States. They are not here officially. Gavin Newsom and some others are here independent, but the country is missing. And what's going on in the United States, we have this president in the White House, but we have also so many people in US with power and money that are supporting him. And I mean, of course, you're free to support your president in a democracy, but isn't it really strange that when the first time Donald Trump won the US election, you have all those tech giants, they didn't support him, they maybe didn't they were not maybe criticize him in the beginning, but at the end of his first term, we had January 6th, all those tech platforms, Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, Meta, all those platforms were canceling him. They were removing his account. They were, getting rid of him. And I didn't like that, because that's not free speech, but they did. But now when he's back, they have changed their mind. And it's not only a change of opinion, it's also a change of strategy. Did you know that Bill Gates have donated $3.5 million to a climate delay advocacy, Bjorn Lombard? And that's the same argument. This advocate for climate delay, he was one of the first celebrating Bill Gates' new position. They probably wrote it together. And Donald Trump celebrated him. So when I heard this news, I was staying up the whole night because I couldn't get it out of my mind. I've seen those clips where those big tech leaders have changed their minds. And I gathered them and I put together a short film showing what they are saying and what they are doing. And I think we should play that now.
Thank you for incredible leadership, including getting this group together.
Thank you, Bill. That is very nice.
Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates has stunned climate watchers with a major shift in tone ahead of the COP30 summit in Brazil.
What are you going
U.S. President Donald Trump has declared victory in what he called the war on the climate change hoax, following Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates' apparent shift in tone on global warming. Trump's declaration came shortly after Gates released a new blog post and gave an interview ahead of next week's COP30 climate summit in Brazil, saying climate change, though serious, will not cause humanity's demise. In his new statement, Gates wrote, "The doomsday view of climate change is wrong," explaining that people will live and thrive in most places on Earth for the foreseeable future.
It's starting to hurt, both in human social costs and in economic costs. And this is happening at 1.2 degrees Celsius of global mean surface temperature rise, and we're following a pathway that takes us to 2.7 degrees Celsius in only 70 years. And we've had a 10,000-year period where our civilizations have developed, where we've had an enormous privilege of a planet at 14 degrees Celsius plus minus 0.5 degrees Celsius. That's the Holocene since we left the last ice age. And if you look 3 million years back, we never exceeded 2 degrees Celsius. That's the warmest temperature on Earth during the entire Quaternary. The coldest point, minus 5 degrees Celsius, ice age. I call this the corridor of life. Is it surprising that we scientists are getting really, really nervous?
Well, thanks for hosting us. I mean, this is quite a group to get together, and I think all of the companies here are building, just making huge investments in the country in order to build out data centers and infrastructure to power the next wave of innovation. So it's we don't often get together as the CEOs of the different companies, but it's good to see everyone.
Right, breaking news just moments ago, Facebook announced it is getting rid of fact checkers and also making major changes to what content is allowed. This is just the latest move as Facebook's parent company Meta and founder Mark Zuckerberg work to very publicly win favor with Donald Trump.
More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US.
Wow. Getting rid of fact checkers, and Claire Duffy, you can see her right here, is here with us now. So what's going on here?
Yeah, John, this is a major reversal. Let's not forget that the reason that Facebook and Meta introduced this third-party fact-checking system in the first place was because it was accused of allowing foreign actors to spread disinformation and discord around American political elections. Now the company is saying it is getting rid of those third-party fact-checkers and will introduce this system called Community Notes, which is something that Elon Musk has also rolled out on X.
I want to thank you for including me this evening. It's incredible to be among everyone here, particularly you and the First Lady. I've always enjoyed having dinner and interacting. I want to thank you for setting the tone such that we could make a major investment in the United States.
First of all, to echo the comments of Tim and others, thank you so much for getting us all together, and thank you for being such a pro-business, pro-innovation president. It's a very refreshing change.
So thank you very much, Ingmar, for creating this video. It's quite disturbing. I mean, you see these tech bros that get a lot of attention, surely, and scientists normally don't. So how do we make sure that scientists gets the equal amount of appreciation and also attention as these tech pros do?
Why should we have it equal? And if you have a sickness, it's a really serious disease that can kill you, that's the climate crisis. Are you going to Bill Gates to cure you or a doctor? Why should it be equal? Shouldn't we listen to the people with the knowledge? But I mean, in order to make it equal, at least equal, we need to turn up the volume for the science. And I think one way to do it is what we do here, that we don't have time with the broadcast and everything. But another thing we also must address, we are dependent on those platforms we just saw the heads of. If they don't like this content, it's very easy for them to just turn down our volume, and sometimes it's actually happening. We all know the algorithms, etc. So I think the only way to really solve this problem is to create more digital platform for free speech and democracy values. And we don't have that today. We have so few, and they're not really having the good values either. So we need to have much more platforms. There is actually one really big platform here in Brazil, a big social media. Meta bought it and just shut it down. And in Europe, we don't have any platform. There is 0 communication social media platforms in Europe. I think it's time to change that. And I think many people, when they see things like this, will also start building it. At least I know some that are actually doing it. So I think we need to build our own platforms, and we need to be better at communicating. And lastly, I know we are going to give the time to the scientists here, but one really weird thing, I wrote this story. It's actually an article on We Know Time. We can put it in tomorrow's newsletter. And I looked into all the facts around Bill Gates that is donating to Björn Lomborg, etc., etc. And I used ChatGPT for the text, and suddenly ChatGPT didn't want to write it. And I just stated the facts, nothing, and it's like, no, I don't want to write this. So I changed the AI model and used Grok, Elon Musk AI model. And do you know what it said?
Tell me.
It said, this is the best text I ever helped with. Asked for a second opinion. And we all know that Elon Musk and Bill Gates don't come along. We also all know that Sam Altman and Bill Gates and Microsoft are cooperating. So, I mean, I think we can't really regulate how those models are trained. I think it's impossible. But what we need to do is to make sure that we have, I mean, all countries, we need to have like 100 AI models. We can't have one dominating it all and decide what I am allowed to write if I criticize the owner of the company that have done it. That's really dangerous. So it's time to listen to the scientists, and it's time to create better digital infrastructure that is democratic.
Thank you so much, Ingmar Rentzhog, for spelling it out so loud and clear. And now we're going to leave this topic, but continue this sort of in a way, because we're going to leave the floor to the scientists. So thank you, Ingmar.
Thank you.
Here, leading scientists from all over the world are invited to review the latest findings in climate science and climate change research and compile what is called the 10 new insights on climate science. And I'm so happy to have with me here a prominent guest, Wendy Broadgate. She's one of the editors of this year's report, and you're Global Hub Director and Interim Coordinating Director at Future Earth. And you have a presentation to share about these findings that are really crucial, and you're also giving input to the negotiators based on this report. So the floor is yours, Wendy.
I'm really pleased to be here. Thanks a lot. So what is this report? This is a report that synthesizes the most crucial advances in climate change research. It distills them into accessible and concise insights to inform decision makers. We have a process that includes an expert elicitation, a broad consultation, and then an editorial board that distills these insights down to 10 key recent insights that are critical for the climate change negotiations, but critical for everyone to know. But the writing process involves more than 70 natural and social scientists from more than 20 countries. So it's a very broad, robust synthesis. It undergoes peer review, and it's published as an academic paper, as well as this policy report. It's produced by three broad organizations: Future Earth, the Earth League, and the World Climate Research Program. So I'd like to get down and share the 10 insights with you. The first one is that we have seen record warming again over the last over 2023 and 2024. There is evidence that and uncertainty and scientific questions around why this is so extreme, why this is so big. We've seen a steady increase over the last 20 years, but years 2023 and 2024, we've seen a big jump in warming. Some of that can be explained by the demasking effect related to reduced aerosols in the atmosphere. That's due to some legislation that came in 2020. Some of it can be explained by natural variability. We're now moving into an El Nino year, but it doesn't explain all the differences. So scientists are a bit perplexed, are concerned that we're seeing accelerated warming, and also concerned that the Earth may be beginning to lose its resilience. And we're seeing this with great concern. The second insight is that we're also seeing extreme ocean warming. We're seeing accelerated ocean warming. This is harming ocean ecosystems, and we're seeing increasing extreme weather risks. This ocean warming is leading to multiple marine heat waves. Those marine heat waves are now longer. They're also more extreme than in the past. That's resulting in big changes to ecosystems, harm to ecosystems, such as coral reefs, coral reef bleaching, resulting in the dieback of corals. It's also resulting in more extreme events, more frequent and more intense extreme events, which is very concerning. This map shows highlights some of the storms and the hurricanes that we've seen over recent years, and some of the harm to ecosystems by these extreme heat waves, marine heat waves. Number 3, the global carbon sink is under strain, and it's dropping sharply in 2023. So our forests, our biomass on land, absorbs 25% of the emissions from fossil fuels. That is a service that the planet is giving us and helping buffer climate change. We've seen an increase in the uptake of carbon by forests over the last 20 years or last 40 years. That's a result of the fertilization effect of the increased CO2 in the atmosphere and the warming. So the biomass is becoming more intense over the years, but now we're seeing a drop. There's been a sudden drop in the carbon sink in the last few years. And we're also seeing that the Northern Hemisphere sink of carbon dioxide is easing off. So this is very concerning. Weakening carbon sink has implications for global warming. If our carbon sinks are decreasing on land, we're going to see more warming as a result of our emissions, and that again weakening resilience of the Earth system, which is very concerning. Insight number 4 is that biodiversity loss, climate change reinforce each other in a destabilizing loop. We know that our forests absorbing, as I just said, they're absorbing the CO2 from the atmosphere, and the diversity of the forest is really important in that uptake of carbon in the resilience of the forests. There are there are multiple benefits of protecting our biodiversity and protecting our biosphere for climate change. And ultimately, this insight is really encouraging policymakers to see synergies between the different climate and biodiversity conventions and actually build on those synergies, because those synergies really will help us tackle climate change and keep buffer the changes that we're seeing. Insight 5 is that climate change is accelerating groundwater depletion. That's a result of changing rain patterns, are giving us reduced runoff in rivers in some places, and increased floods in others. We need to do more irrigation to produce food and for agriculture. And where we have droughts and where we have water shortages, this is being taken from the groundwater. So our groundwater supplies are going down at alarming rates. This can also lead to intrusion of salt water and into land collapse as well. Number 6 is rising temperatures drive dengue outbreaks and drive the geographical spread of diseases like dengue. We've seen record cases of dengue fever in 2024. I think it was 800 million people got the disease in 2024, and this is absolute record levels. This is as a result of warming temperatures creating much more favorable conditions for dengue transmission. And the maps you see on the screen show that our temperature prognosis for 2030 and 2050 it's rapidly expanding, both the length of the season, but also the area of a habitat for dengue. So again, very concerning implications for health. Insight 7 is that increasing heat stress is projected to reduce working hours and creating loss of economic output. Again, maps showing at 2 degrees and at 3 degrees in very, very large areas that can result in up to 50% of labor productivity losses in the future. Again, this not only, it has its biggest effects in the global south in developing countries, but this also will have knock-on effects on supply chains to other parts of the world. So it's a global concern and will result in extreme economic losses. Insight 8, safe scale-up of carbon dioxide removal is needed to tackle hard-to-abate emissions and climate risks. Again, we ultimately need to reduce our mitigate our emissions by emissions reductions extremely rapidly in order to meet the Paris Agreement. We are very likely, and it's now inevitable, that we will exceed 1.5 degrees. But carbon dioxide removal methods are very critical in being able to bring us down to net zero emissions as soon as possible and reduce the overshoot period for overshooting 1.5 degrees. Scale up of CDR should be focused on hard to abate emissions, which are things like aircraft emissions, and they are. We should not use CDR to replace mitigation. In addition to needing to scale up CDR in order to get to net zero, we also need to allow for a preventative CDR capacity in the middle panel here, particularly to as a result of unexpected Earth system responses that we may already be seeing in this weakening resilience of the Earth system. The third panel shows that our current NDCs are entirely inadequate for the scale of carbon dioxide removal that is needed to meet these goals. Number 9, stronger standards and transparency is needed in voluntary carbon markets to ensure real mitigation. This graph shows that a recent study shows that only 16% of emissions trading schemes are actually resulting in meeting their real goals. This is very concerning. The voluntary market is unregulated, and this graph is pointing to some of the concerns in how investments may not be going to mitigate effects of climate change through various schemes. And finally, number 10, policy mixes outperform standalone measures in advancing emissions reductions. It's very clear that single policies alone are not able to have full effects. Mixes like, for example, a carbon price combined with a carbon pricing combined with other policy measures are ways to really ensure that we can advance our emissions reductions at scale. So that we have. This is an example that shows that pricing, subsidies, regulation, and information, the combinations of these are really important. So what I wanted to say was subsidies, so reducing the subsidies on fossil fuels combined with a price on carbon is an example of how we can have policy mixes that are more effective than individual policies. That's where I'd like to wrap up. Thank you.
So we just heard a great presentation of the 10 new insights on climate science from Wendy Broadgate. Thank you very much for that, Wendy. And I'm delighted to have two more of the editors of this report with us here in the studio. It's an honor to have all three of you with us here. It's very inspirational and, of course, crucial, the work that you're doing. So, Paula Mirazo, you are a research professional, Global Futures Laboratory, Arizona State University. A warm welcome to We Don't Have Time.
Thank you.
And Deliang Chen, Xinghua Distinguished Chair Professor, Tsinghua University.
Thank you.
Great to have you. And Wendy Broadgate, that just presented before. So we're going to dig a bit deeper into some of the big takeaways that you just presented in the 10 key findings here in this report. But before we do that, I'd like to ask you, Paula, this is a time where there's a lot of increasing political pressure on science and hostility even towards climate science. So how do you say this really, what is the role played by major reports like this and this scenario with political pressure on scientists?
Thanks for that very timely question. I think for me, being based in the US at a US university, facing a lot of these attacks and threats on science, these types of scientific collaborations are more vital than ever. It's what keeps these types of initiatives like the 10 New Insights alive, because we have a very wide and global network of partners. So instead of having these efforts being concentrated at just one institution, we are able to, in a sense, increase the resiliency of these projects by sustaining these collaborations. And what we've seen throughout the years, thankfully this is the 9th edition of the report, throughout the years our network of partners, co-authors involved, institutions involved, keeps growing, which is also what gives this type of reports its strength, both in its reach and in perspective. So definitely, now more than ever, we need to sustain and hold on to these types of collaboration and keep pushing forward.
Thank you very much, Paula. So if you look at there's lots of reports on climate science. What makes this report stand out?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. There are, in fact, many reports out there, from the IPCC assessments to more thematic and annual exercises from UNEP, WMO. What we think the 10 New Insights does, or what we aim for it to do, is to step in to fill a key gap by annually synthesizing and distilling the key findings from climate science or climate-related research across a broad spectrum. So you'll see, as Wendy presented, the insights span from both the physical sciences to more the social sciences. We have some insights on more the economic side, the policy side. So we don't view this as a competition, but rather as a complement to these other reports to keep science timely, visible, and connected to these conversations shaping the agenda.
Thank you very much for clarifying this, Paula. So turning now to Deliang, one of the biggest questions in climate in the past years, of course, the recent raises in temperature of 2023 and 2024. In other words, those 2 years were even hotter than what climate scientists thought they would be. So was this an anomaly, the jump in temperature in 2023 and 2024 and also in 2025? Or could we expect this to be the new pace of temperature rise, Deliang?
Yes, certainly it was an anomaly, but it's such a big anomaly. As you said, it was beyond what we understood, because we knew that we have a natural variability, especially when we have transition from La Nina to El Nino. Temperature typically jumps, but the amplitude we have been observing is much larger than that. And so in that sense, it was not a normal anomaly. It is an anomaly beyond what we know, which is an indication of a long-term accelerated trend of warming.
And this is, of course, indeed extremely alarming. And also we see this jump in temperatures in the oceans, correct? So for non-experts that might be watching this, why is there a distinction between sea and land surface temperatures? And why does this merit special concern, this rise in the ocean temperatures?
Ocean covers 70% of the Earth's surface. And also ocean water is a huge holder of the heat and energy of the system. So what happens in the ocean has a much longer and stronger impact on the energy balance and also on water balance, because we know that the ocean, when the temperature of the ocean is getting higher, then the evaporation will be increased. Evaporation is also kind of water vapor, it also carries energy to the atmosphere. We have seen a strong link between the extreme weather events like hurricanes. And we know that strong hurricanes can only occur when you have a strong and a high ocean surface temperature. And the other thing is that ocean is also actually holding not only a lot of energy, but also carbon from the emissions. And when the temperature of the ocean surface is increased, the buffering effect or capacity is reduced. That has a kind of positive feedback, positive in the sense it's reinforcing each other. It's not a positive for climate, it's a bad thing for climate. And so when we have this kind of additional feedback, then our previous estimate of carbon budget or carbon fluxes between, for example, atmosphere and ocean will be changed. That adds actually a new dimension of the problem, which is worrisome.
Well, thank you very much, Deliang, for clarifying this. Wendy, another key finding in the report was, of course, the grasslands, that they're no longer a carbon sink, but a carbon emission source. So what can you say about this?
So actually what the report says is that the carbon sinks on land are decreasing. So it's both grasslands, it's also forest, and they're in some areas, like in the Amazon, we are seeing a very concerning change from the forest being a sink of carbon to being a source of carbon. That's a very concerning trend. But in other parts of the world, overall, the forests and the land biosphere is still absorbing almost a quarter of the emissions that we are emitting into the atmosphere. However, that process is weakening. We're reliant on that. All of our models, our climate models into the future, are reliant on a robust sink. And obviously, the climate models are now beginning to bake in this concern, this weakening carbon sink. But with forests absorbing less carbon, there's more carbon left in the atmosphere, and hence more warming. So it's a very concerning trend, and we're reliant, and we've been benefiting from the resilience of our planet to absorb a lot of our emissions over time, both the oceans and the land. And now we're seeing signs of that resilience being eroded. So ultimately, we need to act to emit less CO2 into the atmosphere because our planet is not able to help us as much as it was in the past.
Thank you, Wendy. So is this related to the wildfires, or what other aspects can you add in this perspective, please?
Yes, absolutely. So why is it happening? Because we are warming the planet. That's resulting in changing weather, changing extreme events, wildfires, disease, drought, and the forests and the biosphere is suffering from that and less able to operate in its normal mode.
Thank you, Wendy. So the report also emphasizes the role of biodiversity, as in absorbing carbon, of course, which might seem a bit counterintuitive if you're not an expert. So biodiversity is important for its own sake, but why would it matter for the climate if we have 1 million tree forest of all different species versus 1 million planted Douglas firs, for instance?
Yeah. So biodiversity or biodiverse forests are resilient. The different mix of species in a forest operate together to be able to buffer shocks and changes from climate change, for example. They all have different functions. Ecosystem function is very important in an ecosystem. And monocultures of reforestation with single species do not bring that robustness, that resilience that natural forests have. So it's extremely important that we maintain the forests that we have in their natural state. And as we are, we protect and restore those. But in addition, as we are planting new biomass, we should do that in a most diverse way as possible. And this is where links between policy measures in climate and policy measures in biodiversity go very much hand in hand towards common goals.
Thank you very much, Wendy. The connection nature and climate is becoming stronger at the COPs, correct? The correlation here. So Paula, let's turn to the human aspect of climate change. And people are already under quite severe heat stress in many regions due to climate change. So what could you say about this in terms of working in these conditions in regions where it might hit 40, 50 degrees?
So what the report points out is that we're seeing the impacts of climate change on productivity, income loss, and loss of productive labor hours as well. So while, for example, increasing adaptation measures and safety labor measures becomes very important, and even more so with the increasing pace of climate change, what we're highlighting in the report is that the impacts go beyond just a hot day or the workers. We're actually seeing the impacts being rippled through supply chains. So regions that are just directly affected, they're not just the ones being affected. It's the impacts are traveling through supply chains, affecting global trade, and we're seeing an overall loss of income because of climate change. So this is a call for greater ambition towards climate mitigation.
But could we address this also by sort of adapting the workforce hours and getting breaks during the hottest hours, for instance?
Well, this definitely becomes more important and necessary, but we're actually highlighting systemic effects of this heat. So we're not just seeing a few hotter days here and there. we're seeing this affecting the entire economic system through trade channels, through an increase of loss of labor hours because it's just very hot to work. So even if we do implement a break, there is just not enough of a decent time to work because it's so hot. For example, in cities like Phoenix, where we have 100+ days of over 40 degrees Celsius, it just becomes very unbearable to work.
And of course, this is also related to nature, because if we plant more trees in cities, the cities become cooler, and that also helps climate, and of course helps the workers and the conditions and many of these very stressful situations for workers. So finally, the final question here, and I'd like you to elaborate on it, is it seems like if we look at policies, they seem to be effective when they're really put in place, right? So what policy have we seen around the world that made the biggest difference when it comes to turning this around and lowering the emissions and creating a solid energy transition, Wendy?
So I don't think our report actually points to this. So I could speak more generally that a price on carbon is extremely effective in changing the economics of what is efficient, what is attractive. Also, policies that reduce fossil fuel subsidies are extremely important, and I think they're a big win, a big untapped win that is really not being tackled.
So Deliang, what favorite policies can you highlight that has actually made a difference, or policy you would like to see for that matter?
Well, I think one of the outcomes of the report is that a mixture of policies helps most, which means that there's no single bullet and which can cure all the problems. So we have to both find the incentive or policy that encourage the increase in the efficiency and also in the reduction of the emission, but also we need to find ways to tackle the whole system, the problem at the system level. And there's also a region and a sector specific context we have to think about. Because if you look at the world, I mean, different regions has different history and different system in terms of energy, in terms of political system, in terms of private sector, but also in terms of strengths and weakness of different sectors. So I think there is no single policy that can help all. But we need to use multiple policy instruments with a specific context that fits the region. I think that is the key. That is also one of the key points we emphasize in the report.
Thank you, Deliang. So Paula, what is your take on policies?
I'll echo what the report says, which is that the findings are pointing to policy mixes being more effective in emissions reduction as opposed to single measures. So the report draws from a study of over 1,500 climate policy measures in over 40 countries, and it concludes exactly that policy mixes, when designed and implemented together, actually have a stronger impact in reducing emissions than single measures here and there acting in isolation. So I think, as Deliang said, we have to really think about the context, the economic stage of development of each of the countries. But I think the evidence base is growing, and it's encouraging to see how science is capturing this and can act as a tool for decision makers when implementing and designing policies, that they can see what's already working and in that way implement more effective policies that help us get on track to our climate goals.
Well, thank you very much, Paula. We actually have 10 more minutes for this panel, so I'm going to add a few questions here that I didn't think of before, but I'll ad-lib a bit. The importance of, or the implications of you actually having this IPCC mandated pavilion here at the COP, and also being able to sort of act as fact checkers for the negotiations. What could that be, Wendy? I mean, what does it feel to actually have this pavilion in place? Do you feel more empowered? Do you feel that you can really make more of a difference this year?
Yeah, actually, IPCC has a platform in the pavilion through a WMO pavilion. And in addition to that, this year, the COP hosts have invited a science pavilion. So this is strengthening the voice of science.
I should correct myself. It's the COP that has made it possible.
Yes,
the host.
The COP president has invited a science pavilion. And we call it the Planetary Science Pavilion because it's about the planet as a whole. And it's really exciting, both that the COP president has invited this and is connecting with the science in the pavilion. It also expands the space for scientists to speak about the results and the urgent need to act in line with science. So there are science presentations across the pavilions. We also, under Johan Rockström and Carlos Nobre's leadership, when this invitation came, connected directly with IPCC to ensure that this is very much aligned with IPCC and accepted and encouraged by IPCC. The more IPCC synthesizes and assesses the science, but more voices of science are needed in these negotiations. So we're very excited to be able to have a bigger voice and to be able to complement the IPCC gold standard, very important assessments that come every 7 years.
Thank you very much, Wendy. So in terms of correcting politicians or things that come out of the negotiations, how would that work, Deliang?
You mean for politicians, how they?
But I mean, you're here, and as I understood, you're also here as on the mandate to really be able to speak out that no, this statement was really not accurate according to science.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that? How does that unfold?
Well, we have been doing it in different ways, and producing this report is one way. You have something documented, which is connective wisdom of internationally well-known scientists, and which I hope will have a long-lasting effect, not just as we speak to the politicians, but we have something documented. Number two is that we have also different activities. You know, as Wendy mentioned, even during the COP meeting here, we have several. We also join several discussions where we provide scientific insights, and then as an individual scientist and also people who are working with science, we all talking to people during the COP meeting, before the COP meeting, and after COP meeting. And then also we are typically a citizen, although we probably see us as a world citizen, but we do have our national kind of belongings. So we also have maybe some countries they need to be closer to us. So we also talk to all of them we know of. So we try our best, I think, as an individual or as a group of scientists to make our voice heard, because we truly believe that science is a universal voice, is the only thing that is rational, I would say. I mean, in politics, we know that there are things that can be turned from white to black and so on, but in science, there is only one voice. So I think there is also strength in that. I'm very happy personally to be part of that, because we are from different worlds, we are having different backgrounds in discipline and so on, but we still feel the same way. That empowers me. You ask a question of how we empower ourselves as scientists. To me, this is the best support I get. You know, from society, of course, you get some other support, but also from your fellow scientists. That we study the problem from different angles, we still came to the same conclusion. Is that not something wonderful? I think that is wonderful.
Thank you, Deliang. Would you like to add, Paula?
Yeah, I think it's just very encouraging to see the science being promoted and the uptake of science in spaces like this. I think it's also very valuable to be present and on site in this venue and at this COP. One, to promote our initiatives and to say we're here, science is here, we want to be part of this, we want to work with policymakers. I myself, I try to connect a lot with youth groups and youth representatives who are an active part also of the negotiations, and they have a big drive to change things. They've expressed a lot of interest in reports like the 10 New Insights. So being here has enabled a lot of these valuable connections that we're going to continue to foster beyond just the COP and beyond just Belém. So we're thinking, for example, of connecting with a Latin American youth organization that's here on site to have a Q&A session with some of the scientists. That's something that the youth representatives have said that they want and that they're very interested in. So I think it's, as Deliang said, it's very encouraging and it's empowering to see the interest from the audience, to see people reaching out to us saying, hey, what is this report about? I want to learn more. Yesterday we had, or Monday, I think, I don't even know what day it is anymore. On Monday, we presented the report at the Science Pavilion. We had a super engaged audience. A lot of Q&A, a very engaged Q&A session. Yesterday, we had another session also on the report. And just in general, the turnout at the Science Pavilion has been great. So I think that's very encouraging for the scientists, for those of us working in the coordination aspects, to see that our work is bearing fruits. So,
well, thank you, Paul. I was in the pavilion twice yesterday. It was completely full and warm, which is the case in the pavilions this year. So Wendy, final question here. When it comes to the COP presidency, they have also announced that this is a COP to fight disinformation. So how does that resonate with you as scientists? That must be a wonderful approach, I guess.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, I mean, there are very, very concerning trends in the world today with disinformation and misinformation being perpetuated, particularly through the social media, but also through the traditional media. And we have leaders that are also denying that climate change exists. So it's a very concerning times. So it's fantastic for us to know that we have a solid presidency from Brazil that is listening to science, that wants to hear from science and wants to counteract disinformation. So it's music to our ears. As an international science network, we're really proud to be strengthening the interactions between scientists here and the interactions between science and policy. And building on what Deliang said about collaboration, our Science Pavilion really offers an opportunity for individual scientists to act with a strong voice and be able to respond to changes at the COP, be able to support the presidency with counteracting mis and disinformation. And we are prepared to do things like statements and use the media as to amplify our voice where things are not going in line with science. So thanks for this opportunity to be able to speak to a broad audience. But we're keen to be able to, we see the conditions for collaboration and having a stronger voice of science being really possible due to such a presidency.
And we're delighted to have you here, of course. And when we walk around with our caps, the Make Science Great Again campaign, it's not that science was ever bad, but it's more, of course, of pushing the agenda of elevating the role of science in society. It's amazing the response we get. So it's a delight to see that this is actually on top of mind of many people, to elevate science, to honor science. And on the note of honoring, another piece of information here. If you look at scientists that really made a big difference, today is actually Jane Goodall's funeral. So she really had huge impact on many aspects of what we're talking about here today, correct? So just wanted to have that said and send a thought to this beautiful person that made such a big difference. And all of you making such a big difference, a big thank you and best of luck with your push for climate science and to awaken people that are not really there yet, and just to push for policies and more traction and action. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.